what the clock says, it's 7 o'clock
Do you want chairs up here?
in Sutton.
And one right here?
At the planning board meeting for March 9th, 2020. Under general business, we have the minutes from February 24th, 2020. If someone looked them over, and
I'll make a motion, we accept the minutes for February 24th.
okay,
Second.
any discussion? Correction,
Well,
okay.
because Scott, were you here on the 24th?
I just seconded it. No, I abstained.
There you go. Need someone to second.
I got Wally.
Okay, good, all right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, well done. Under filings,
Finally.
I didn't have any, which was good news. Where's my minutes to sign, right here?
Yep.
Do that before I forget.
I did prepare you some notes for tonight.
Okay.
We're
Good.
gonna still need this in a minute. And, for this document in a minute. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
It says, Form A plans,
None.
none. In correspondence, there's an article,
Jim Lee, so that is Blackstone Valley Relaxology. Come on up.
oh, okay, oh, good. All right.
Yes. So just introduce yourself and,
I'm Chris Chicino. I'm representing the landlord and the tenant at 176 Worcester Providence Turnpike, and also the landlord at 188 Worcester Providence Turnpike. The tenant at Jingley, who's currently had a business there for 3 years, at 176 wants to move into the space next door. It's been available since she moved in. And then also take the space at 188 Worcester Providence Turnpike.
Do you have a copy of that? Okay.
yes. So we did, review this last meeting, and the Board of Health requested, to come look at the space.
Mhm.
And I believe the Board of Health and the building commissioner were out on the site last week, and there are a few minor things that were all set. And, so they have no objection if the board wishes to take action on this request to double the existing space and also locate in the former South County Chiropractic building. I would just recommend a condition that once the new space is outfitted, that also gets a Board of Health inspection before operations begin.
Okay, well, thank you for coming in, first of all. We appreciate that. And I'm Bob Largis, I'm the chairperson. We appreciate you when you come in. Whenever something happens, the planning board in particular, myself, we want to be pro-business whenever we can be, but I don't know anything about your business. So that's why we were raising some questions, and and the board members just had questions as to what kind of business it was and why they were expanding. And business is booming in Sutton.
Yes.
You have more clients than you can handle, or you need more
No,
space
so-
for them?
Yes and no. So the building that she's in now, 176,
Right.
she has a small space in there. It's less than 1,000 square feet. And she's getting more and more demand for women clients in Sutton. Are coming in more and more. And they require chairs. They want to have the big chairs that they do foot massage work in.
Okay.
So those take up a lot of space. So she needs a space next door to basically put 4 or 6 of those in that space. And also make it more woman friendly. So her idea is to have like a lounge with a TV and, new carpeting and just more advantageous to a woman clientele. So that's her plan there, and then she'll take her existing business, which was primarily men for the first 3 years, and move that down to 188 to the chiropractic office in that location. And that business will operate pretty much exactly as it is now, just in the other location.
And that's reflexology.
Correct. And either location can be men or women, but she's pretty certain that if she does the design a certain way at 176, it's gonna attract more women, which will,
Okay.
it kind of snowballs.
All right.
Is the hope.
Good. whenever someone comes in, it's important that we do our due diligence, you know, and unfortunately coming in, cause some people do things and don't ask us.
Sure.
And then we get a surprise when people walk in and we have new tenants and a whole new business at
Sure.
addresses, so we're doing our job as a planning board.
Yeah.
Any questions from board members?
I actually had one note on here, the difference between, because I think the card at the location actually has some prices on the back of the card, and it says foot reflexology and whole body. So what's the difference between whole body relaxology and a massage?
So there's a difference. So foot reflexology, you're working acupressure points on the feet specifically. And then Jing Lee, the other person there, actually myself, we're certified body reflexologists.
Okay.
So we work acupressure points throughout the entire body, arms, legs. So it's the same thing, you're stimulating those points that are on the feet, but throughout the whole body.
So it focuses on acupressure points as opposed to just a general
Correct.
massage.
And the state that's really an issue you have to bring up with the state, is why they have body work and why they have massages, two different things.
Okay.
That's maybe
Okay.
changing, but right now it's not, so,
And you said both of you are certified?
yes.
That's all I got.
I think one of the things when we read the email, was talking about it would have the same 2 practitioners and the same average of 10 clients per day.
No, each location would have 2 practitioners and assuming 10 clients a day.
So it would increase the business. is
It
the
would,
hope. 'Cause we-
but divided over 2 locations.
Okay.
I didn't wanna make it to seem like we double the amount of people and double the amount of people working at one location. But you're gonna take the 2 that are there now, move them down the street. We're hoping the same clientele will stay there, which is 8 to 10 people a day. And then the new location would be 2 additional practitioners.
Cause when we read it, we were kinda looking at, if you're not expanding more people,
Right.
why would you expand 2
Right,
more
right, yeah, it
spaces
was
without?
each location.
Okay.
Okay, we don't have to approve anything, we just wanted information.
No, they did not request a formal site plan review, like per an application, they were just confirming, cause the building commissioner said, at 188, that that's kind of the same use group as going from South County to this use. And they're just increasing the size of the use at the existing location, it's a conforming, already permitted use. So, he just wanted to make sure you were aware, make sure you had all the information you needed and that you were good with everything that was going on, and just, acknowledge that in open meeting, that you know what's going on. You certainly can, even though we don't have like a formal application, you can vote to approve the expansion of the use at this location and the other one and condition it on Board of Health if you'd like, without waiving site plan review, because you don't really need it in this circumstance, it doesn't qualify under site plan review really. So,
I'm thankful that you came in. More information? Any other board members have any questions?
do you wanna do a motion, or do you just wanna make it clear that he can't operate until the Board of Health inspects the new space?
I would prefer to have some statement on our part that, you know, the Board of Health has to, just go down and
Yeah, she
approve
did
it.
that before we opened the first location too.
Yeah, but
She had 2 one,
So, to approve the
Let's-
expansion of
I'll make a
use?
motion to approve the expansion of the use with the condition that the Board of Health signs off upon
Yeah.
before opening up.
Okay. Need a second?
Second.
Thank you. Further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Good job.
Just a minor business item, Kyle is still not an official member, yet he keeps getting, his paperwork got lost. So, I just wanna note that he's acting in the place of Miriam. Actually, now that Miriam's gone, so basically, is he acting in the place of Miriam? Yeah, even though she's not
You're
still
it.
a full member.
You're it.
Yeah.
And, Bill Talcott will be the alternate as we need him. Okay.
PV in place of MS. Gotcha.
Okay, 7:10, we have a public hearing for a retreat lot common driveway at 82 8 Lots Road.
Can somebody read that notice?
Thank you.
in accordance with the provisions of section 6H retreat lots and section 6.1 common driveways of the Sutton zoning bylaw, the planning board will hold a public hearing on the applications of Bilal Jabir of Worcester, Mass. for property located at 82 8 Lots Road. The applicant seeks to amend the common driveway, which currently serves 39 and 41 West Millbury Road, to serve an additional lot, and also proposes to create a 5.51 acre retreat lot with 50 feet of frontage at 82 8 Lots Road. They will be assessed through via the common driveway. The hearing on the application will be held in the third floor meeting room of the Town Hall on Monday, March 9th, 2020 at 7:10 PM.
Thank you, Michael. Hi, welcome aboard.
Hi, thank
All
you,
right.
Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is George Kurtz, I'm a lawyer in out of West Boylston, Mass. I represent the applicant, Bilal Java. With me tonight, Kevin Quinn, Quinn Engineering. Also participating in this application and assisting us is Ecotech, Art Allen, who's done a lot of the conservation and environmental review relative to these properties. Also Kevin Jarvis at Jarvis Land Survey. They did the survey work there. In the audience tonight is the applicant, and in the audience tonight is his father and his sister, who are two of the direct abutters to this property. So if I can just, before we begin, I'd just like to acclimate the board as to where this property is. The property is, it's good on this little portion of the property, there's a locust map, and this is the portion of the property that, this is what Mr. Java owns. He purchased this property in 2017, after his father and his sister had already purchased and occupied the property on West Millbury Street, West Millbury Road. So his father lives off of West Millbury Road, his sister lives off West Millbury Road, and they access their properties, their houses, via a common driveway. He purchased property behind their houses, and that has a relatively narrow 50-foot wide leg that runs out from the main body of the lot, which is up here. Little narrow leg that 50 feet wide that runs out to 8 Lot Road. And that's why this property is 8 Lots Road. So we're here tonight seeking 2 special permits. One, we're looking to come off their common driveway and add a 3rd branch to the common driveway, which now services those 2 lots for the purpose of accessing the backland, which is what Mr. Bilal Jabba owns, which is this property. And we're asking for formal recognition or creation of an estate lot or a retreat lot for his property here, which is the 82 8 Lots Road. That property is well over 10 acres, over 15 acres in area, which is a remnant. So this property, his lot, was created when the original developer carved out a whole lot of other properties by A&R process, leaving this remnant. And this remnant has the criteria dimensionally for a retreat lot, but it was never formally created as a retreat lot. It has 50 feet of frontage on 8 Lots Road. It's, 52 feet of frontage. Its width is 50 feet wide at the minimum. It runs all the way back. It's got over 10 acres of area. It's got it's got a buildable area of 200 by 200 contiguous upland area for building. So when they remnanted this property out, when they carved this property up and they left this land out, this met all of the criteria for consideration as a retreat lot, although it appears as though no one actually ever made it that. Mr. Java bought the property in 2017, thinking it was buildable, and that's when he's come to the whole engineering team to see how do we go about building this. And the best way to come across and reviewing all of the different criteria, looking at what's probably better for all of the abutters and everything else, they've come up with the idea that the best way of accessing this would be to add a 3rd branch off of the existing drive. So we're gonna be asking for 2 special permits. One is modification or a special permit for a 3rd branch off this existing common drive. All right, it would not be, it's a 3rd branch, and It'll be independent from the common portion of it. This common driveway already exists and has already been approved. This board has already approved that common drive. This would be a third branch, and this area this part of the leg, or this new branch, would not be common. This would be exclusive to the Jaber property, which is the back property. That's what we'd be asking for there. The other thing would be a retreat lot. And when we're looking at this, most often the retreat lots, Sutton's bylaw provides the retreat lots have to be accessed across the road in which you have the frontage. So we're gonna be accessing this not across 8 Lots Road, we're gonna be accessing it from West Millbury. But there is a provision in the Sutton bylaw which says that it has to access off your frontage unless access is via a common driveway that's been approved by the board with a special permit. So we consider that this would be one of the exceptions. This is the exception that's contemplated in your bylaw. If you have an existing common driveway, or if you have a common driveway that's approved by the planning board, you could access in a retreat lot via that common driveway. And that's why we're asking for both retreat lot designation, classification, and common driveway. Even after that, we have to go to Concom, because there is a series of wetlands which we've highlighted on the property. We know where the wetlands are. So we are gonna be facing Concom, we're gonna be dealing with them. And the back of the existing Jaber properties on West Millbury has some environmental restrictions already in place. Those are restrictions done through the Concom and through state natural heritage. So we're gonna need relief from them as well. But before you go to them to get the permission, we have to know whether or not this is whether or not we can get the classification as a retreat lot with the common driveway, so that we can then apply to them for relief from the existing conservation restrictions that have been imposed, and conservation, the Wetlands Protection Act, we need to get out what is the condition so we can do the build. So that's what we're looking to accomplish tonight. With the neighbors being right here, being all family, this keeps it as far away from all of the other abutters, any other abutters. It keeps the access away from these people up here, rather than approaching and putting a new driveway in down below here where there's other abutters. We can keep it basically into a family estate area, and that's why we're gonna concentrate our development all right here, and everybody who's in the family is assented to this, the sister, the father, and the property owner. So we're respectfully we're hoping to get special permit to do that. That'll open the books so that we can go and apply to the other agencies.
Good job. Thank you. All right. How it works, through the chairperson, when an applicant comes in, like anyone can come in, the applicant makes a presentation. Then I ask board members to weigh in, because they're so smart. They have a whole bunch of questions they want to ask, that the applicant can address. And then, before we make any decisions, we ask Jen to weigh in. We ask people that are here, that are in the audience, because they have something to say. We never know if they're gonna show up. Maybe that's why everybody's here. We don't know until we get here. And then we'll take it from there. That's pretty much how we do it. So, thank you. Good job. All right. Any questions from any board members yet?
I have no questions, but do you want me to read in the comments from the other boards and departments?
We have all those. Any other board members have anything at the presentation?
Well, there's one question, but you say you're not coming in off of 8 Lots Road, but, there is a historical memorial down there.
That's right. We're staying
Which,
away from it.
was put up by the Stockwell family back some time ago, which I wouldn't want to see anything happen to that.
One of the reasons we're doing this is to avoid all impact out on 8 Lots Road, by doing it this way here. So originally, you could come in with a long driveway.
Right.
I don't think that serves anybody's purpose. It's not good for my client. It's a lot better to do a short driveway through his family's property. And there's neighbors down here, why disrupt down that area? This area which keeps it nice and tight. We have no intention, this will be completely untouched land down in this area. And we can designate that and restrict that.
Okay.
Any other Question from board members?
What's the length from West Millbury Road all the way up to the house?
To the house, all the way to here, it would be over 900 feet, I think. Of course, that's, the common portion of it is less than 500 feet. So
Okay.
that, where it's common, it's less than 500. At that point, over half of that area is exclusive driveway, no longer common.
And a bunch of other boards.
Okay. Anyone else? I asked you to raise the comments. I just hope everyone gets along. I get nervous at common drives. They all sound so good. And I will you with continued success and good luck. Boy, do we hear about these things blowing up.
We have already in place a common driveway agreement between
Right.
the current owners.
Yeah.
We'd add to it and make it,
Yeah.
so that they would share in the responsibility for maintenance.
Yeah.
And as it is, it's, right now, it's purely family, so.
Yep.
As you're
Keep
right,
it that way.
You never know.
Okay.
There's no family.
That's how it
never
should be.
fight.
I'm an optimist. That's how it should be. That's how I want it to be in my family, but don't get in my way all the ways. Go ahead.
So, we have a few other board comments here. First being Concom. Applicant must file a NOI with Concom prior to building. 2 abutting properties with common drive need to file for COC, and there's a deed restriction and they cannot access from West Millbury Road common driveway. So that's Concom's comments. Let's see, this one is Board of Health has no concerns. Nick Nunemacher from Assessors, he has a few comments. 1, the plan show abutter Cole information in the wrong location. Abutter Midzar information is missing and should be here. Abutter Midzar property is also a retreat lot, so there will be 2 retreat lots side by side. 3, if this revised access is approved by the board, I will have to change the property street address. This means that there will be 3 homes on an unnamed common drive. Since the other 2 properties are 39 and 41 West Millbury Road, and this access is between them, the new property would have to be 39.5 street number on number 41, or number 41 would have to agree to change their street number. 4, the extent of the deed restriction in this area is greater than shown. 5, the proposed access from West Millbury Road is a 50-foot wide strip through the restricted area and may require modification, if possible, by the Conservation Commission and the Massachusetts Division of Fisheries and Wildlife. 6, access from 8 Lots Road will require approval by Conservation Commission, but not through restricted land. 7, the distance from either road to be a possible house will be about 700 to 800 feet. Police have no comment. And fire, to limit confusion for emergency services, an acceptable street number for this address should be used. From the common driveway from West Millbury Road, this should be sequential. I think that's all I have for board. And board department comments?
Taxes were paid. That's good.
That's always a good thing.
Mr. Chairman, do you want me to go over
Yeah.
the comments?
Yeah, thanks. You're next.
So I did issue a set of comments dated February 26th. Pull those up. All right, so, the first comment was the plans that were submitted were labeled as conceptual plan. As noted below, they're missing quite a few, necessary information. I didn't receive any revised sets of plans, nor did I receive these plans electronically. So, there are things you'll see as I go through the comments that need to be added to these plans so they can be acted on. The proposed extension of the common driveway, as already noted, is shown through National Heritage Endangered Species, notification. And that is shown on this plan up on the screen. So all of the darkened area is restricted by the Natural Heritage for Endangered Species Program with 2 endangered and threatened species without, throughout that area. So that, as noted, would need to be revised, and the board just has to decide what order of operations they're comfortable with.
What's that all about?
That means that endangered species have been determined to be within those areas, and I see Mr. Quinn through the chair.
Yeah. What are the endangered?
There's a deed restriction that
pertains to endangered species.
Mm-hmm.
What that was based on was estimated species mapping, estimated habitat. Subsequently, Ecotech has done an investigation and demonstrated that endangered species that were designed to be protected here are not actually present.
What were we looking for?
I don't even know what the
There
species.
was actually three species.
But you can't, if you're not there, you
So
can't
there's
find
three
it.
species, two of them have been delisted.
Yeah.
And there's one species that's still there, and I think it was a box turtle, so I think it was a turtle. But whether or not it's actually habitat, we recognize, just so you know, I mean, this is not, there's no, Jen's absolutely right. There's a restriction right now, there's a deed restriction that, Mr. Jaber and his daughter both put on their properties, on West Millbury Road.
Yep.
Those are in place, they're through the Concom and they're through state natural heritage. We have to go to them to get that
Okay.
lifted.
Okay.
If they say no, we're not going there. We do believe that we'll be able to work that thing,
Okay.
that through them. But, and then if they say no, then we're back to the drawing board coming in this direction.
Okay.
But we're looking to avoid that, and we recognize that, I think it is the best way of going
Okay.
for it. If you get that permission, we'll go to Concom, see if they'll lift it, and then we'll go to Natural Heritage, see if they'll lift it. And Art Allen's gonna be doing that from Ecotech through them.
Sounds like not our
So
stuff.
that phrase is the most troubling phrase in the entire restriction, which is the underlined, bolded in perpetuity. Which we know, in perpetuity doesn't always mean in perpetuity, but this is the actual recorded deed restriction, so that will be definitely a hurdle.
If I may on that, just because the restrictions are written, even though it's natural heritage and it's Concom, the power to change them rests with Millbury Concom, even under that restriction. It doesn't know you have to go to natural heritage. We would, and because Millbury's Sutton's going to want to go, Sutton Concom's gonna wanna go to natural heritage. I got no problem with that. So we'll go to natural heritage, we'll go to Sutton Concom, we'll see what they say about this. But the power does actually lie with the Sutton Concom.
So you anticipate successfully going through that process?
We do.
I mean, if not, you wouldn't be
We do,
going on that.
exactly, yeah.
But
And
the backup plan would be to
Come
sit,
in down below here.
what's it,
And there wouldn't be a common driveway, it'd just be a
It would
long
be a
driveway,
big-
but it'd be a long driveway, it's gonna be more expensive for him, and it's not the best fit. And one of the trade-offs that we can do, I mean, the property is gigantic, it's a much as you could see on this, it's much larger than what would otherwise be required. We can restrict a whole chunk of this backland and make the same restriction to Concom. So we're not gonna divide this any further, we're putting a single house on this property. We can restrict it, so with this small section of land that we're gonna ask to remove from the restriction, we can add a whole bunch more land of restriction down the back.
The key is gonna be Art Allen, who's extremely confident, his evaluation of whether there's actual habitat are there, because it doesn't make any difference if you add area on, if you're rolling over a bunch of three-toed salamander on the way. So
They've
that's
been
gonna be
delisted,
key,
But I
you know?
went through a nightmare with them in Rutland, but
Yeah.
they have been delisted.
All right, well, at least they,
So that's the key
I didn't know
on
what
that.
they were talking
So you
about.
guys just need to think about the
I'm
order of
enlightened.
operations.
Yeah. Okay.
So there are some more comments here, so let's
Yep.
go through those. So, again, the lot on here, everything I got was conceptual, so I can't determine if the upland area, it says the upland area is, it's not definitive, so that needs to kind of be pinned down. This is for the retreat lot. This does look on the surface of it, our bylaws actually say you cannot have two retreat lots side by side at the frontage. And when you look at the tax map, it certainly looks like there are two retreat lots side by side here on 8 Lots Road, but we did do the research on that lot, in this direction, and that one was actually created in 1967. It is not a lot that holds a special permit, to become a retreat lot. It looks like a retreat lot, and I'm not privy to exactly how that one got created, but I do have the signed subdivision plan, of that lot being created. So, you just need to agree on that one, that the way the bylaw is worded, that it still complies. Said lot shall be at least 250 feet from any other lot granted a special permit pursuant to this section, measured at the road frontage. So they're both retreat lots, but the one to the, west was not granted a special permit. It was created through some other means. Okay? So I.
Just so I understand, so I'm looking at that, you just pointed to the one that exists, that's existing,
This one is existing, was created in 1967.
and where's the lot we're talking about?
Lot
Right next to it?
Right next to it.
Okay.
So normally you would look at that and go, ooh, violation. But I did the research to
Well,
see
the
when that
permit
lot
the
was.
special permit process didn't exist in 67.
Right. So it got relief in some other manner, or was I don't know what. I didn't see that in the records, but I do have the Form A plan showing that that lot was created in 1967. So it is not a lot that was granted a retreat lot special permit. So I think it reads okay, but what I think doesn't matter. It's what you think that matters. So that's something to just mull it over. The note regarding no future division was not apparent on the plans that were submitted to me. The proposed common drive, of course, we need to deal with any issues on that in terms of access. The application states that the applicant intends to install above-ground utilities. This is not allowed unless the board finds this is necessary due to extreme topographical or environmental constraints or safety issues which have not been asserted or demonstrated on the plans or in the application, so you have to address that.
Just so you know, my client had requested that we do above ground, recognizing that the board wants, underground utilities. They've told me, if the board's unreceptive in any way, we'll do underground. So I'll tell you right now, we'll withdraw that request for the record, and we'll do underground utilities.
Yeah, it's actually not really about them being receptive. This is a special permit, as you know. You meet the condition or you don't get the permit. And you can't get a variance from a special permit requirement, so it's not, their hands are completely tied on that. So, unless you demonstrate one of the exceptions, so. All right, on to the common drive. The common drive is proposed to serve this lot, doesn't access 8-lot road where the legal frontages, so you just need to, as already indicated by you, determine if you think the language in the common drive gives you the latitude to access off the common drive on another roadway. So, let me just read that out loud again.
The exception.
Do you want me to read it, Jen?
Yeah, go ahead.
Let's see. Section with the exception of access to a retreat lot via a common driveway for which a legal special permit has been acquired.
I'm gonna back that up a little bit. What number was that?
Just H, not under a number. Under retreat lots.
Oh, no.
2F, as a
2F.
requirement of the retreat lots.
2F.
So it says, access
Yeah.
from frontage
Yeah,
to the
that's
lot,
what- never mind.
to the principal structure on such lot, shall be within the boundary of the lines of said lot and shall not be via right of way or any public or private easement over an adjacent lot, with the exception of access to a retreat lot via a common driveway for which a legal special permit has been acquired.
Right.
So, would say that that's an exception that's contemplated in the bylaw, that we don't need to access off the frontage portion if we're accessing via a common driveway with a special permit.
So now let me throw the wrench at you. I don't necessarily think he's incorrect, but then you read the requirement for the common driveway. Common driveways may only access the street where the lots served have required legal frontage. Impossible in this
So, yeah, so
situation.
I would just say that the two of them would be,
Right.
I mean, you can't have,
Right.
both. I mean, there's a.
It's impossible.
it's a-
That's impossible in here.
Internal
Yeah.
contradiction. So if
It
it's
wasn't
forbidden-
anticipated to have two
Yeah.
lots with access here and one lot here. So you just have to decide that you're okay with those conflicts and that the common sense quotient works or not. So those are the weird contradictions, so.
So as a question to that,
Mhm.
there has been a special permit granted for that common driveway.
Mhm.
What year was that? Roughly,
2014,
you know?
2014.
2014.
14?
Yeah. And both of those lots obviously had frontage, legal frontage on
Right.
West Millbury. The details regarding compliance for road profiles, roadway construction, cross sections, none of that's on the plan, so I can't tell you whether that complies or not. Let me see, so that's for, item 3, item 4, item 5, item 7, item 9. We need the road profiles and we need the roadway cross section to determine compliance with any of those. I did not see a record and common driveway restriction and maintenance responsibility on file for the 2 existing lots.
I saw one in my files, so,
So we just need to,
I have
We
one
need to make
drafted for
sure-
this one as well, and,
we need to make sure if that one's out there, that it's provided, or otherwise something slipped through the net on those 2 lots. And then all 3 lots have to have reference to that usage and maintenance covenant, basically, on each of their deeds. And I've seen the proposed one. The proposed one is missing, restriction of parking on the common drive. So that is missing from your restriction. So that has to be added into your proposed one. So, I mean, the houses on the other 2 lots are up, they're occupied. If there's not a restriction on file, that's your bad, but it's also our bad. So that needs to be corrected if it's not in place, regardless of what happens on this lot. And your draft is fine, other than you have to also restrict parking on the common portion of the driveway. And that's literally on the common portion.
on the common portion. And that's just, you know, when it comes, so that's something I can take care of with that, and we do have draft, and I can add the restriction on that. I think one of the reasons why there's no profiles, because it's not, we're not built, because the common portion of it's already built, so we weren't changing, though, that's already been built, we haven't profiled out them, because, I mean, we have the original, Kevin's got those original, profiles and designs for the existing common, but we didn't profile out this because this is not really part of the common drive. And that's gonna be done in much more detail when it's time to go to Concom to get, Concom's order of conditions for the crossing, if they give us the blessing. Cause they're gonna tell us how to do that crossing, or what they want us to do.
Just resubmit the sheet with the old common
the old-
driveway with all of
yeah.
that on there. And then the fire and police departments, that'll be a condition that third driveway, if it gets approved, that has to get their approval as well in terms of those grades, the turnaround at the end, that
Aye,
kind of thing.
All right. As I want to ask anyone that's present that has weigh in, like we haven't got enough stuff on our plate. Historically, I can remember being on the planning board, and just an overview. It was clear when this planning board, I was a member of that planning board, was brilliant when it came up with retreat lots, because we realized that the only way property moving forward in Sutton was gonna be developed was if someone bought a whole bunch of land and built subdivisions, and we're gonna buy buses and schools, and we had to find a way to let people who had big pieces of land that they wanted to have, and not force them to sell it off in one big chunk. So the relief came by saying, if we let a property owner put 50 feet on the street, they give us a whole bunch more land because of that shortage, that reduction, if you will. And that opened up a whole bunch of land in Sutton that was now gonna be accessible, but not only accessible to a big development, to look like the rest of the world was going. So that's the spirit of the common drive. And but it sounded fine until the plowing the driveway. Then I started hearing about the common drive things, and I went, geez, be careful. Comments sound nice on paper, but then when the world shows up and a tree falls, and who cuts the tree down so we can get out of the house, it just became, and it has to happen because there's 911 calls that have to come near it. So it's something I still all approve of. We need to have retreat laws, they work and they conserve open space and save the turtle, whether they exist or don't exist, but the fact that there's space they can habitate until they move on, that's important. So if there's anyone here from the public that has anything to weigh in, thank you. Your name and,
Joe Miller, 55 West Millbury Road. On the proposed lot, how many feet is the extension of the common drive to the new house?
If I may, yeah. I don't have the exact number, sir, but I would be clear that the common drive actually remains almost untouched, almost unchanged. The portion of the driveway that goes up into the lot is not common, that's a private driveway. It's probably 800 feet. It depends on where the house goes exactly. We show it going into where the building envelope for that house would go, but we don't know exactly. Probably 800 feet.
So 800 feet to the new house, and how many trees are gonna be cut down towards the high tension wires?
I don't know, not going in that direction. Yeah, none in that direction at all, sir.
Cause I'm on the other side.
You're on this side. Okay. Yeah, there's a gas user right through there.
Right.
We're not going even near the gas user.
And the new retreat lot is the one up right next to West Millbury Road? Or is that an existing
These are
retreat?
existing, yeah.
Those are
What is,
existing.
if I may, there's an existing, common driveway that services 2 lots off West Millbury. And what we're seeking is to have a third driveway that goes in off that common driveway.
Right.
To this parcel here that's with the pink,
Which already exists.
which already, it is an existing parcel.
It's just not buildable right this second unless we grant this permit.
That,
answers your questions. Good, that's what we're supposed to do. All right.
Someone else.
In the back, please, your name and your address, please. Thank
Hello,
you.
everyone. My name is Eamon Abdel Jabber, owner of Eamon Contracting Inc. out of Shrewsbury, Mass. I'm hoping to be the builder for this new home if we get some approvals. And I just wanted to give you a little background. The reason some of the reasons we're choosing to come in off West Millbury Road is that it's a much smaller impact on the environment. So if we come in off of 8 Lots Road, we have to build 2 culverts, cross over a ton of wetland, and we're really gonna tear things up on that side. So by coming in off of West Millbury Road, we can utilize the existing impermeable area. You already have a driveway, it's already common, it's already family owned, which could get a little tricky in the future if they resell. So what I've done in the past on these deals is just put a ton of deed restrictions in, as far as verbiage spelling out maintenance and, you know, the tree and a circle, even if it's not paved, a large enough area for a fire truck to be able to maneuver in and out, and you just riddle the deed restrictions in there to make sure that if, you know, in the future, the grandkids choose not to live there anymore, then it's still marketable and valuable title. So one of the other things is, parents are getting a little elderly, they're getting there, no disrespect. So what would be better than just imagine, a daughter on your left, a son on your right. It's too perfect. So the kids will be able to take care of the parents a little bit better, keep an eye on them, and also they'll be able to help maintain that common drive for the mother and father.
So he'll be shoveling the driveway, is that what you're saying?
That was it.
But as he was saying though, the deed restrictions you're putting in is in case down the road they're not
Correct.
family.
Yep.
I mean, obviously,
Right.
that's the.
Exactly, so that you make it a marketable title, but there's lots of verbiage and who's responsible for what. And if we even had to, we could even set up some type of association, but those get a little tricky.
I've done that, and we've provided that. There'll be the restriction against parking in the common area, but other than that, we've got those common driveway,
Yeah.
so, you know.
How wide is the common driveway now?
18.
18, okay.
Okay. Anyone else? Thank you. It's back to the board. So we, no.
So 2 applications before you. One is for the retreat lot, and then one is for the common drive. So you have to decide, you know, I'd focus on one first and then the other. Retreat lot's probably the easier one to focus on first. So you have to decide if the retreat lot meets all of the criteria of the regulation. And then you have to, make if you need more information, you're gonna continue that portion of the public hearing. If you don't need more information, then you're gonna make a motion, and there's gonna be some minimum conditions that I would, recommend. And then we'll move on to the common driveway. If you wanna do it in the opposite order, we can do it in the opposite order. On the retreat lot, like I said, I didn't have a very definitive plan, so I don't know if the upland area is not definitive.
We have identified it as.
So if you wanna have Kevin address each one of the things that were kind of a little off, and then you can decide whether you're in a position to act on that.
Yeah,
Have him do that?
let's go through the things on the retreat lots that need to be addressed.
Okay, so the lot this lot does not, I can't tell if it's been thoroughly surveyed. So the overall and upland area is not definitive per the plans that were submitted to me. So, let me address that one first.
So, Kevin Jarvis did this plan, which is for the special permit plan for the retreat lot. This area of it, which shows the frontage, because that's one of the criteria, is the frontage and the width. He's identified that. He's identified an area in here, which is where the building's gonna be. And this has all been in detail in the field, been laid out and identified in the field. What's not been laid out in the field with full, and surveying is all the land in the back. Because to do a full perimeter of the entire property, when all of the work is on this portion of it, it would have been extraordinarily expensive just to go in, just to identify the boundaries that exist. Bear in mind that this was not, see, this is one of the problems in that, you try to explain this to my client, and I'll explain this to the board, is that this is a remnant chunk of land. So, there was a large piece of property and they carved off all of the lots around it. And when they carved off all the lots around it, they left this portion here, but there's no plan. Historically, there's no plan of record that shows what this is. So in order to identify those properties, either you do an 81X plan with a full perimeter survey of the 15 and 25 acres, depending upon who you're looking at. It's gonna cost tens of thousands of dollars to perimeter this thing. Whereas for the purposes of the special permit, we needed to establish certain criteria for the board. Frontage, width, and area of uplands. And the area of upland has to be 200 by 200, all right? So we know that we have a criteria requirement that we have to be three times the zoning requirement for area. We're well over 10 acres, and this only requires one, so we only needed 3 acres of area, so we're over that, we know that. We have 50 feet of frontage, 52, so we're all set there. We have 50 feet of width, we're all set there. Those are the criteria. And then the other criteria that Jen was talking about was the upland area, and we have to have upland of 200 by 200. 144,000 or 200 by 200.
That's 144, period. You either have to meet the regularity factor or have a 200 by 200 area, but you need 144,000 square feet of upland.
So,
So we don't have that yet, we don't have that yet.
No, we have done it, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yeah.
The surveyor went back, and what he's done is he's verified on the area surveyed that they have 153,000 square feet of upland. So the lot has greater than the minimum required area of upland. There may be more upland in the rear, but we verified that we satisfy the requirement in that area surveyed. And we're able to submit a survey plan with certification by the surveyor to that effect.
I think that's something we need.
Yeah,
I think-
myself.
yeah,
Absolutely. So,
definitely.
so just so the lot we're talking about has the blue streams and stuff, it's a big, long rectangle.
Yes. Yep.
Which is about 15 acres, you're saying? It's an
Yeah.
unknown size? Is it an unknown
This,
size?
if I may, the rear property lines were not verified in the field. What he's verified and is able to certify to the board is that you have greater than the required area, and that it's in the vicinity of 16+ acres. So we do have a survey that certifies that we comply with the minimum requirements. We know we're over by a factor of 3 for area. Is it 3.1, 3.5? We don't know, but it certainly exceeds 240,000 square feet of area.
Got it, Scott?
Thoughts? Just mulling that, you just digesting that?
Well, I guess I look at this and say, so once this becomes an occupied property with a building on it, there's no real true survey except for maybe the abutters have surveyed their lots, right? And you know where those surveys are, you know where those lines are, you know where those corners are.
All right, so, let me see, the note regarding future division needs to be put on a plan, that's part of and that needs to be on a recorded plan. So this is where we kinda get sticky, is because when we do a retreat lot, the board grants a special permit, and then after the appeal period runs, a Form A plan comes in for the board to sign, and that plan includes the restriction that the Form A plan the Form A lot shown on said plan shall never be further divided in accordance with the covenant dated blah 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 recorded herewith. And what I'm surmising, unless I'm wrong, is that there's no intention of putting a Form A on file because we don't wanna survey the backside of that lot,
The
cause
lot
it's
is divided.
expensive.
And the lot is divided.
So, I'm not really sure how you approach that, the covenant has to refer to a plan, a plan that's on file already, or is going on file with it. The plan is supposed to have the restriction on it that creates the retreat lot, so I'm really just not sure how you handle all of that, cause this is the first time we've had this situation. So, that's a complication. And then we've already dealt with the issue about above ground being underground.
Yeah.
So those are the key issues on the retreat lot is getting some kind of certification of the required upland, and then how do we deal with what are supposed to be recorded restrictions.
The guy that's gonna end up having to wrestle all this stuff is sitting in the back. Nick Nunemacher, can you shine any light on this for us to help us make a decision as a planning board?
Well,
He's the guy that's gonna
if the
assess it.
if the regulations require that a Form A be recorded, you're not supposed to, it is done, but you're not supposed to prepare a plan that's prepared from deeds, supposed to do an actual survey of the property.
Say. Not from deeds, yeah.
But you own it, so.
So, I don't know.
So I would suggest that, there's obviously, when you record at the registry of deeds, there's two recording desks. There's the plan desk and then there's the document desk. We'd be requesting a special permit. Now, the board issues a certificate of action, a final decision saying that we grant this and these are the conditions, this is what we do. In your conditions, that your special permit and your approval and your decision, you make reference to what you review. And you can make conditions, you can make the restrictions, and that controls. So if you say in your decision, no further division, that binds the entire property.
But what do we, per what plan though?
But it doesn't have to be per plan, it's to the property. So we're gonna identify what the property is, and you're gonna say it can't be further divided. No further division.
Right, deed?
By deed.
By
So
deed.
it'll be by,
On a
an
plan, a deed.
by, instead of on a plan, it'll be on your, in your form of decision, when you do your certificate of action. We oftentimes do a special permit plan, which is not A&R, it's not 81X, it's just a plan. I know Kevin Jarvis has called this concept plan, but we call it a special permit plan, and those are the type of things that, and we can put that in there as it says, no further divisions, you can put a copy of that and attach it to your decision. It doesn't get recorded at the plan side, it gets recorded at the, document side.
So that's what you're proposing, is to prepare a special permit plan or a revised one that you've already submitted, so it handles anything that's out of compliance right now, and it can be referenced in the board's decision.
It'll be referenced in the
Or a-
board's
a
decision,
page of.
right, exactly, by words rather than by pictures. And we can attach the picture to your decision, so that it's right there as well, but it's not recorded on the plan side, it's recorded in the document side. So you'll see that with easements, for instance, National Grid does easements all the time, and they don't record plans with their easements, they staple them to the document of the easement, and there's their rendering as to, it's a sketch more than a plan. But it shows all of the relevant materials, it shows what the board's considered.
Poor Jen, and, cause I get tripped up. And, she's seen this when it says not to be built on, it says it on the plan.
Further divide.
And then someone comes in and bought some land around this, and bought land, has access, and it moves forward, but I'm still sitting here as a planning board member, looking at my neighbor saying it says not to be built upon. Then what are we doing building on it? And you don't have, they try to explain it to me, it's like the math problem I just couldn't get. It's just easier to go along with everyone and say that's the answer, cause when it says not to be built on, and that's, I kinda feel like we're leaving this land up here, putting on it not to be built on. I'm sitting here tonight saying that's it, that's all that's ever gonna be there, so we don't have to worry about anyone else coming along, and then when it comes in, for me, it means not gonna get built on.
So that special permit, when you guys do a certificate of action, you do your final decision, it's gonna refer to the entire property.
Right.
It's gonna make reference to the deed and to Mr. Jagger, so that we know exactly what property we're talking about, and it's gonna say no further division. That's gonna run with the land.
Right.
Because that's the relief, that's how he gets his building permit in the first place. Any deviation from that, now or in the future, if he tries to carve off a piece of that, it will render his property non-conforming. He won't be able to do that, he won't, and you're right, I've seen this down the road where I've got one fighting right now in the town of Holden. No further division, no further subdivision. 20 years later, the guy wants to divide it. I represented a butter saying, listen, you said no further division. No further division means no further division. And that's what's currently in dispute in that I have in Holden. That won't happen here because, or it won't, unless you folks waive it in the future. Mr. Jaber comes, he said, listen, I agree that I wouldn't do any further division, but I wanna carve this off and give it to the neighbor to add to his property. You say no to that down the road, it's no. He has no intention of dividing it. And as I suggested earlier, we may be restricting a whole lot of this land anyways for conservation, because that's available to us. Everything, to the north of this easement we had no intention of crossing over that line.
And board members need to also consider that this has a ripple effect. Whatever we look at, if we come in another situation, they're gonna look at this one and say, well, if you did this and didn't have the whole place surveyed for that applicant, then I want the same thing adjusted to me, so I wanna make sure we make a decision that sticks, that someone can't open up a can of worms for a whole bunch of open land over there. And I know it all costs money, that's always a problem, but
Alright, so you gotta decide what you wanna do with this. I mean, we don't have a plan to refer to, so I would suggest, a continuance would just to the next meeting to just clean this all up would probably be most prudent, but I would assume the applicant wants to know exactly where they stand.
Yeah, so if I may, I think that's great, thank you, Jen. Let us give you that plan, that, which is gonna satisfy the condition, or at least what we hope will satisfy your conditions. See if you folks say, I feel, now that you see in front of you, I'm comfortable with what we see. If you're comfortable with what we've given you, then that's fine. If you're not comfortable, we go back to the drawing board, see what we can give you, but I'm confident that we'll be able to give you a degree of comfort that the documents that you see will satisfy what we're trying to accomplish and what you're trying to protect.
So we can, I'll suggest that we give you another slot on when's the next meeting?
Well, let's go through the, common drive ones,
Yeah,
and then we'll just
and
continue.
let me go
on
right
both.
across and ask people. I'll do what I always do. I'll start with poor Wally. You happy with the common drive?
I have some reservations about the common drive. Though I was happy to hear the younger Mr. Jabber say that he's gonna put restrictions in there, because I can just see 10 or 15 years from now, one of the members of the family is sold, there's another party here, somebody doesn't wanna pay for snow, or they just plow part of it, and it's this, that, and whatever, and, we won't be involved in it, but it's just a big mess.
Okay.
My
That's
other
every
concern-
board member to.
My other concern is the addressing part, and that hasn't been answered at all. This in the halves and,
That gives the applicant some marching instructions. What do you?
For medical response, we need to know
the-
exactly where this place is, not guess.
So I imagine some signage can be put there that would direct that to the correct number.
And I
that's
do
being
believe
called
that
in.
there is enough room, there are enough missing numbers that we can renumber to make everybody satisfied.
Okay.
So I think, having heard this discussion, from my perspective, the preference that would actually be 3 shared driveways off of one instead of cutting a new one. And maybe in the deed restriction or the agreement for maintenance of that, there's a part that says, do not call the planning board when there's an issue. Because we've had that happen, right?
Absolutely safe.
Yes.
The driveway, it's our responsibility. The town never go there, never responsible. This is our responsibility. I can assure you that I'm not gonna, all the family member here, one of them is gonna let you do it. This is no problem at all. Just,
Okay.
Good.
Good.
Put it in writing for the reg.
We need to,
It needs to be in writing for the
document
reg,
it.
that's all.
So on the common drive and retreat lot.
I think there's more information necessary, and I have some concern about the full survey and the upland definition, some of the comments you had.
Yeah, and we would, once we are presented with a plan, I will obviously give a quick call over to council and just make sure
I would agree with that.
that they agree
That was
with
gonna
the
be a
assertion
suggestion.
that a special permit plan, just not recorded at the plan desk, but recorded as part of the decision, is adequate or is not adequate. So
Okay.
we'll definitely double check that.
All right.
I will say that a case came down just within the last year that talked about A&R plans, being whether or not they're required, whether or not it's mandatory, or whether or not it's permissive. And the court went out of their way to say that those A&R plans are permissive. If you want to record one, you can present one, but in a situation where the law doesn't, where the law already exists, mandatory is not really required. Now, I think that obviously we have to evidence to you that we're gonna accomplish what you're looking for. And I'm gonna do that. I'm not gonna try to say that whether it's required or mandatory or permissive, it doesn't matter. I wanna satisfy the board, and my clients do. The hope to do it is without spending $30,000 on a permanent survey to show what's north of this easement, which is nobody's ever gonna touch. If we can avoid that, we'd like to see if we can satisfy you on that.
For myself, on the common drive, they make me nervous, but they exist, and if, buyer beware. And I want it to go well forever and ever and ever, as opposed to coming in from 8 lots. That's a much better option for me personally. And on the retreat lot, I feel if we get it, I think we're clear what we wanna see on the plan. Jen's talked about that stuff, and let her see it before you show it to us, because if there's more stuff that we're having questions as she does, get it to the meeting So it's here, so all the i's will be dotted and the t's will be crossed when you come at the next, so we can move it forward, because I want it to happen for you. I mean, you have good intention, you have plenty of land for this, but we have to have, be sure we're doing things that works for everyone as we move forward.
Yeah, I would, pretty much
Common
agree
drive?
with what others say. The common drive, I think, it's in the best interest of the people now to do the deed restrictions sufficiently, because the reality is if you sell it down the line and they're not good deed restrictions, you're gonna have a real problem selling them to other people who would look at that, so. But I also, I think with the retreat lot, like you said, there's a few, it seems like you can meet most of the regulations. I mean, that one bigger one, I think we need a little more guidance on,
Okay,
and see where that goes, but I think
Kyle?
you have enough, you have enough places you're gonna have to move along, to get through this,
We'll get it.
you know, yeah.
No further comment.
Okay.
Okay,
So, motion?
Wait a minute, so one of the ways you might be able to handle compliance with the items from the retreat lot permit is on that same special permit plan. You may be able, cause you've already got a recorded common driveway special permit. So a way to clean and show that, you know, that you have a compliant common driveway that this is accessing off of, maybe to put reference to that special permit on this plan as well.
Yep.
But, I mean, the plan should be showing that third spur, because that's kind of the revision to the common driveway.
Yes.
And, if it's not clear on the plan, the requirements for that private driveway, which are 12-foot paved, 15 feet cleared, 12% grade max, even on the private drive, cause that's going into the retreat lot technically, then it'll become a condition,
Aye, aye. Gotcha.
okay?
Yep.
So,
And we haven't about it?
Yeah, she just answered my question that the extension's gonna be paved.
it has to be a bituminous surface, so.
And it has to be complete before a building permit is issued.
Yes, those are two key conditions that you need to be really aware of. I will not sign a building permit go ahead until the restrictions are all recorded.
So the foundation can't even be started until it's paved.
Well, no, just the restrictions, the deed restriction for maintenance and upkeep. So you can't, I'm not gonna sign the building permit for anything, for a foundation to go in, for the building to begin, until those deed restrictions, I see them on all three deeds, or one restriction referenced on all three deeds. If they're not already on the first two, like I said, I couldn't find them for the first
I'll
two.
see if I can dig them up, and if they're not there.
When's the next
And
slot?
And then, the occupancy isn't allowed until everything's fully constructed. So you can get going on the house construction without the driveway done. Obviously, it needs to be safe for construction access, but you're not gonna get occupancy on that until that drive is 12 feet wide, 15 feet cleared, blah, blah, blah. So next slide, Mr. Chairman, is, well, first you gotta answer a question, because, I've been looking at some agendas for some other boards, and I wanted to know if you wanna flip, and just start the meeting with hearings, so there's no delays, and then at the end, we can do general business, board business.
I'd be for
So
that.
that nobody gets, so our meetings would now start at 7 o'clock, you jump right into the public hearings, and then when we're all done with the public
Do our
hearings,
stuff
we can
after.
do our stuff.
Yep. I'm
Good.
for that.
Great, we can get on track, finally. I had an
So,
11-minute
If you're
meeting
good with
once, I had
that,
to reckon.
then we'll just put them in the 7 o'clock spot,
Okay,
okay? So you would be first up,
What's the date?
the 23rd. The 23rd of March, 7 PM, continued hearing. So I
How
would need a
long's our-
motion to continue,
How long will our hearings go though?
huh?
You mean for the bylaws? Is that about bylaw hearings or these hearings?
Any
Public hearing.
I make a
public
motion,
hearings.
we continue this public hearing until, what month are we in? March 23rd at 7 PM.
Second.
thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Abstain.
Sure.
Thank you for coming in, and I hope we did a good job. If you have any questions between the hearing, Jen works for you, and she's very accessible, so No one needs to show up here and saying it had some questions that haven't come up between now and then. Address them to her so she can take care of that stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have to have another meeting with the conservation?
We do.
Different,
Yeah, it's a
different group. Yeah, all right. Thanks.
Just wanna make sure.
Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Okay.
Thanks, Jim.
Oh, brother.
Good night.
I was afraid we had two lots side by side. I was gonna, how the hell we can't do that. Boy, they'll get along.
That in 1967, I think I have a theory.
Yeah, Dave Valley, he says there's always a way to get it every lot. Yeah, there's always a way to get in. Don't anyone say you can't have accessible. There's always a way to get accessible.
Now we get to the fun stuff.
Great, come on down. How we do, Jen?
Bylaws.
Yeah, I can't
Tammy
tell.
Kahali knows.
You're tired. Go to bed. You're getting old. Go to bed for crying out loud. I know. Get your eyes checked. You're doing well. You too. Good to see you.
Alrighty, so, if we can just clear the room of discussion. Alright, I emailed you some proposed articles. And, I emailed you some proposed articles based on our discussion at the previous meeting.
Come on down. Yeah,
And,
what the heck? Huddle.
And I want to go through the ones that I've handed off to you. And then we need to have just a little bit of discussion on kind of what we were anticipating maybe bringing to Springtown meeting and what it might be wise to kind of just hold back on for a minute, both because of the timing on our traffic study information we need and some kind of potential prospective developments, multiple now, that are kind of way in the balance, okay? So let's just start, I want to start with Articles A and B and Articles F and G, and then we'll come back to the ones in between. So, Articles A and B. Okay, so Article A, this is marijuana business overlay, having to address that. So we have two different avenues. We could take one or the other or both tactics to handle making sure we have a viable marijuana business overlay area and or we allow the uses in an existing district. So this is two different ways to go at it. The first article would be to add an additional area. We can take the area off of South Sutton Commerce Park if you want, but I don't really necessarily see the need at this time. You can't put anything in there right now because there's no lease space available. If there was ever lease space available, well, then something could go in. So we would just be adding a parcel or an area, I should say, to the MVOD, and that would be the area south of Oakhurst Road, east of Route 146 and west of Lackey Dam Road, north of the town line. So this is keep the marijuana business overlay district, add a block to it. So now your MVOD would consist of South Sutton Commerce Park and this area either side of the highway. So that's one way to get at the MVOD issue. The second way is per Article B, which makes all of the uses that are already in the bylaw permitted or special permit uses in the office light industrial district. And then we would adjust the footnote to say this use is also allowed by special permit in the marijuana business overlay district. So it is permitted or special permit in OLI, and it is also allowed by special permit in the marijuana business overlay. So I just want to know if you want to go A, if you want to go B, if you want to take a shot at both. And right now, no, I'm not even gonna do this. So, what do you think about this?
Oh, board members.
My opinion is B. I think it's cleaner, easier, and more straightforward in the format of the bylaws that we currently have.
I would second that.
1, 2,
And it will work,
3.
Yeah.
and it will work
Mm-hmm.
at town meeting. I mean, we're
It's
talking,
easier.
we have to,
It's easier. Yeah, as soon as you say the word overlay, everybody goes, oh.
Yeah, overlays, I would agree, overlays have become,
Yeah.
If
So
we-
1, 2, 3, you're on board then, Bob?
Yep.
4, so just Article B? Alright, so
Yep.
Article A just disappeared.
We're still keeping the overlay as an option in case.
Commerce Park. So we
Yes.
wouldn't remove the one that sits in Commerce Park, we just know that it's not functional right now.
Just in case,
Yeah.
for some reason this doesn't pass,
Yes,
we can go back to the drawing board and,
yeah, and make
Utilize
some-
an overlay
kick somebody out of
district.
a building and,
well, we can utilize an overlay elsewhere in town at the next town meeting or something.
oh, yeah, you mean keep the.
Keep the option to
MDOT.
use the overlay.
Overlay, right, okay. Alright, so B is what we'll go with on this. Alright, so
Was that-
now,
enough consensus
Oh.
for you?
unless there's, do you wanna take any comments from the?
Yeah, any comments from?
And that's why we're having the hearing, unless we said some.
Well, this isn't a hearing yet.
Right. Or we'll be convincing completely off of our minds. Should be a completely different tact on this.
Okay, so we're gonna add use to the OLI unless we hear something. Okay, alright, so now let's go to Articles and D.
And people know they have to put it someplace. We're getting that clear to everyone at
Well,
town meeting.
people don't know that, we need to make that very, very clear.
We have to make that
Alright,
clear.
so miscellaneous articles, we've got 2 of them. One of them, I'll have to, talk to you on. So Article F is eliminating the 25-foot separation to the town line, but only in the office light industrial district. So right now, we're thinking about just the town as a whole, with OLI being both in northeast Sutton and in south Sutton. So no additional districts in the town right this second, as we're talking about this. So we're not eliminating them in the residential districts. If you have a house, you can make sure it doesn't sit on top of the town line. If you're in a business district, when you look at what's left for land in the business district, there's, the southern section is not on a town line, the northern section on the town line. There's one parcel where they might wanna straddle the line, but that's not critical, and it's a tiny little parcel. The other one is a power line easement, so you're not putting a parcel under it either. So just in the OLI, which is the only place where you have larger parcels that butt up against the Millbury town line and butt up against the the Douglas Uxbridge town line, you can straddle the line or come up to the line with buildings only in that district. And that's just to aid development, multi-town development in a lot of cases, or maximize land right up against the town line in those areas only. Okay? We talked about that a little bit. G, I don't think I talked to you about this yet. This is coming out of discussion, extensive discussion for a while with the building commissioner, and also out of a lawsuit and some other discussions we've had over the years. What Article G would allow you to do is, and let me show you an example. Let me show you an actual example. Place myself all the way to the other side of the town here. Alright, so. Let's see, this'll make some sense here. Alright. Come on, lot lines, pop in. You're very familiar with doctrine of merger. Doctrine of merger basically says that if you have 2 lots, one or both are non-conforming, pre-existing non-conforming, that, if you own them side by side, when the law occurs that makes them non-conforming, you have so many years to kind of use them independently, and then they're merged permanently. You can't sell off one and use the other one, it's not buildable. What happens, in a lot of cases is people don't know about that. If you're not a planner, if you're not a planning board member who's been beat over the head with doctrine of merger, you know nothing about doctrine of merger, and in a lot of cases, people find themselves in this situation, just completely accidentally. So what this, bylaw change would do was in a situation like this one, where the same person used to own lot 72 and lot 253, they sold off 253 and saved 72 for their retirement. And then when they just went to build on 72 for their retirement, they were told, you can't do that. You owned those two, you owned them over the particular time period, you had to kind of use them independently. You've lost all of that, doctrine of merger, you can't pull a permit on 72. If you zoom out, you'll notice that lot
Considerably larger.
is
Not
a little
larger,
bit larger than a
larger
lot of
than-
the lots in the area, but it's extremely consistent with a lot of the lots in the area. And it's almost an issue of equity, though it is absolutely not buildable under the law. It's not, it's just not. It's kind of an equity issue that you can choose to address through a bylaw change. So, you can see I already marked up this bylaw change because I already don't like the language entirely. But this bylaw change would allow the use of lots like this one. It should be doctrine of merger lots, but the zoning board of appeals could grant a special permit and make a finding that the lot is pre-existing, is non-conforming, but is substantially consistent with other developed lots in the immediate area. The building commissioner recommends a minimum, that there be a minimum of 20,000 square feet, because that is the minimum lot size in most districts. But this would also come into play in the lawsuit we have pending.
In this particular case here, did you say 72 and 73 are jointly owned?
72 and 253.
253?
Yep, those
right
two
next
were
door.
jointly owned. They sold off 253.
Yep.
And kept 72 for their retirement.
Okay.
And then now just recently rudely found that they can't do anything with 72.
They had originally bought the house and lived in it and bought the empty lot next to them, and because it was commonly held.
Actually, they bought them both. They sold 253 to live off, basically, to live off the money from that sale. And they lived elsewhere. And then 72 was their retirement plan. So living plan, retirement plan. And then they were just told basically, sorry. And they're just, they're not the evil developer who developed the whole neighborhood. They're just that.
I'm familiar with this area because that's my house right next to 253. That's my house in the corner of Fox Run. And when the gentleman had come by looking for a variance for 72 to build, I thought he expressed that he also owned 73. Like, I thought that's what the commonality was. No? He actually owned 253, which is
253, which is not owned by, that hasn't been owned by them now since like 1996.
right. Another man built the house. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so this is, like I said, this is coming from the building commissioner, myself, town council, any number
So
of,
if this passes town meeting, it would
settle an outstanding
settle this
legal
dispute
issue.
right here.
But the one thing I am gonna do is I'm going to try. I haven't figured out how to do it yet, but I'm hopeful I can do that, is I wanna run a map for potential exposure. So
I'll say how many
it'll
of these
show.
exist.
I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure I can think of I can think of two offhand, and just other situations, one on a lake, one on another part of town. But I want to run it so you can visually see what your potential exposure is.
So this person did go to the zoning board of appeals, right?
And got
got
denied.
denied on that end. Okay.
Any help from Nick? Comments?
Over the years, because Jen has mentioned this doctrine of merger, merger of substandard lots, that I have in the Board of Assessors, every time we see a situation like that, we try to merge the two substandard lots. Generally, it means that the homeowner has a smaller tax bill. It also reduces the amount of parcels that we carry in the Board of Assessors. And presently, I think we have 300 to 400 of these parcels that are combined in town. Wow. There were were 2 parcels, now we assess 1. Somewhere 300 to 400 of that. Another benefit is that the assessment system that we have, when you go from 4,999 to 5,000 parcels in a town, you have a larger tax bill. I mean, a larger bill that we pay to Vision. And this, if this goes through, and we lose those, I don't wanna say lose, that we have to unhook 300 to 400 parcels, we're gonna be over the 5,000.
But then we'll have more tax dollars to pay for it.
Don't look at things for the amount of money that the town has.
Well, you were just looking at it for the money that you'll spend, so I'm looking at it for the money you'll gain, so.
No, don't look at tax dollars on your decisions. That's a poor way to decide
So
things.
you and I should check and see how you have these coded, cause if there's a particular coding on the combined, then I'll be able to pull it on GIS so we can visually see them.
No, you don't.
There's no coding?
No, there is no coding. There's a note on my parcel card saying includes, and then it's
Okay.
on the.
So but it'll still show up as 2 parcels side by side, same owner, right?
Yes, and it should have a dashed line.
Dash
between.
line.
Okay, so I can
Dotted
probably
lines,
pull them
yeah.
that way, so. But I mean, I think we need to understand the visual. Think we need to see the visual, cause we need to know the exposure on it.
So how many towns have this kind of thing? Cause this is, this seems like common knowledge to me,
What?
this contiguous lots.
It's common knowledge to you, cause you've been a planning board member for 30 years.
I think I knew it before I came on the planet.
Yeah, it's common knowledge to you because you're a planning board member. You were born a planning board
Oh,
member,
there we
weren't you?
go, there you go.
So.
Feel like I've been here that long too, huh, Bob?
So I'll run the map.
I knew it.
I'm just letting you know this draft is out there. This did not come from you, obviously. This came from a different direction. So we're talking about it and considering it, but I did, agree with the town administrator that I would try to get him a visual so we can really understand the exposure. Not for a minute that I think it was 300 to 400 parcels, but we'll see it. It'll pop on a map if it is, and then that's a different consideration.
I wasn't following Nick, it goes over $5,000, what was why was that line important, what happens?
You pay more
The
for assessing.
pricing schedule for the software that we used for the assessing has 0 to 5,000 parcels is one fee.
Okay, now I get
5
it.
to 10 is a different fee.
Okay, now I
And
understand
this
what
would-
you're
this
saying.
would
Okay, that's what I
push us,
was missing,
yeah.
what,
Okay, so you pay
what the
more
number
for
is.
It'll
assessing.
push us over to 5,000
Yeah,
parcels in
okay,
town.
now, okay, I
Pay
understand.
more for that.
All right.
All right, so that's out there and blah, blah, blah. All right, so now let's come back to C, D, and E. So, in the previous meetings, we talked about, our office light industrial district, which everything in northeast Sutton and in south Sutton is zoned office light industrial. And we talked about the possibility of reinvigorating the multi-town mixed commerce district. You sent me with some homework on a bunch of different uses, and you see in front of you tonight, I gave you these 2 different documents. This is a whole package of use tables and definition tables from a whole bunch of different towns. You're probably looking at it going, so where's Douglas, where's Uxbridge, where's Northbridge? There was 0 useful stuff in any of the bylaws in any of the towns abutting us to the issues we were looking for clarification on and definitions for. So I did start with all of our abutting towns to see if they could help us define some things, and as I anticipated, a lot of towns' use tables in the same area tend to look a lot like each other. We don't reinvent the wheel a lot. So then I reached outside of towns in this area to some degree and looked to towns that might have the kind of uses we were talking about, the warehouse and distribution, the service businesses we were talking about with the vacuum excavation guy, those kind of things. So you have some use tables and definitions. The other way I have always tried to find good wording for definitions for different uses is I go to the NAICS, the North American Industrial Classification System, and I look up, I throw in the search engine, vacuum excavation, and it'll pull me down to a level of the NAICS, and then I drill down, and it gives you different wording that it may be specific, like there was definitely no category for just vacuum excavation, obviously. So it'll drill down and give you wording you can use and maybe classifications that might be helpful to you to define different types of uses. So this is my other trick for coming up with definitions. I'm sharing these with you so you can see it's not real cut and dry. A lot of it is kind of you smooching things together so it says how you understand a use. So I did a bunch of that work on the uses we were talking about. And then I started working on, I took the table of use, I took the office light industrial column, and I ran down it. This is in the format for an article, so I put a strike through line on everything I recalled you wanting to strike out of the office light industrial district. I underlined anything that you wanted as new or changed, and then there's a question mark next to a few of them because I couldn't remember what you told me to do on a few of them, as our discussion was very lengthy. So I honed down the office light industrial. Then I have the article striking self-storage facility from the definitions because we wanted to strike that use and all reference to it. So that's gone. And then I took a extremely lame attempt at a definition for service companies, and that's when I went into the NAICS to try to find something more detailed and kind of more what we were talking about. So that's why I handed these to you. So now you see how I do these things and you can help me. So when you're bored over the next week, you can search the NAICS and we can work together to kind of hone in on the definition. What you do not see is the MTMC bylaws. And I want to try to explain to you why. There's been some developments since our last meeting. You'll recall there were two reasons we were really kind of honing in on really doing a different use district for South Sutton as opposed to Northeast Sutton. And they were really twofold. We wanted to do a different zoning in South Sutton because particularly for uses like warehouse and distribution, the roadway network, the capacity of the exit ramps and on-ramps, it's just better structured to handle warehouse and distribution. Whereas Northeast Sutton, with the light and with the intersection of Providence Road and Boston Road, and otherwise you're going through 140 towards Hopkinton or through downtown Millbury out to a major transportation corridor, is really not well versed for heavier kind of uses like warehouse distribution. And we had, as you know, employed Central Mass Regional Planning to do the traffic study. We expect to have the base model all complete within the next 2 weeks, and then we can literally plug in any scenario we want and see what it'll do to the traffic at a very wide range of intersections, but particularly at the lights and particularly at Providence Road and Boston Road. So the reason you don't see MTMC in here is because the other reason we were thinking about MTMC and trying to clarify that is we've got a strange definition of trucking service and warehousing that we really thought needed clarification, and we had a significant prospective business or two that was really looking intensely at that area, and that was very germane to their potential business. As you know, they've sought an opinion from the building commissioner, and an opinion was issued basically saying the uses they anticipated it could move forward in the under office light industrial zoning. So I've also subsequently had conversations, and other than the 25-foot separation, there's really not the worry necessarily, as an extreme worry about the height issue. There's really not an extreme worry about really anything else other than the 25-foot separation. So we kind of have like a little breathe on that there's not a huge push to kind of make sure we're accommodating or even clarifying that use, because there's a determination in writing on the books for that. The other thing that interestingly enough happened, is there were multiple major development firms looking in northeast Sutton at the aggregate parcel. And that is moving forward very, very quickly as well. And aggregate themselves, their real estate development firm, and many of the big companies looking at that like the idea of cleaning up the OLI table and defining things a little bit better, but kind of like the other potential parties in South Sutton, there are certain uses that they would be happy if we just kind of let the status quo go for right now, and until we have the traffic study stuff. And I'm not so much worried about what the companies want, but I really think it might be a better tact, especially as we're looking at Northeast Sutton, that we don't touch too much of anything in terms of big uses we're not sure about until we have those traffic numbers in hand. I don't know that we should mess around with certain things in the use table without knowledge behind the moves. So that's kind of why you don't have MTMC in here. So I don't know if you agree with that, if you disagree with that, if you want to talk about that in more detail, or if you just want to kind of look at what's been done here and see if I've got these things straight. And if you want to still make these initial changes to the OLI, or if you want to table those for now, or what you want to do. It's a Springtown meeting, as you know. The selectmen would absolutely love it if there's as few zoning articles as possible on the Springtown meeting. But we're always trying to be, as Bob said earlier, really business friendly, tax-based job creation friendly, without messing everything up by making just kind of knee-jerk decisions. Questions, comments? What do you want to do?
Traffic study gonna tell us? It's gonna summarize what we have, and if we could have inputs into that. So, for example, if there's 500 trucks a day coming out here, this is what's gonna happen, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it can
It's a
basically,
model,
it'll
it's a
give us a
model.
really good eyeball on capacity, kind of what capacity's in the system there. So, and we can literally say we have some information on what's, likely, or what most of the developers have been looking at in terms of uses. I can literally say, 500,000 square feet of manufacturing with some distribution of the manufactured product. I can hand that ITE trip generation number with the square footage to those traffic engineers, and they can pop that in there and run it. And then I need to give them a little bit of background on client base if I have it, because that determines distribution. And they'll show us just what you see on a traffic study. We'll get to see if there's intersections that go from a C to an F. So we'll get a better sense on whether a particular use type gives us bigger traffic problems, and know whether we should, because you can, as you know, and there's a reason I gave you some of these use tables, is you'll see, you can limit a use. You can define a use in a district by square footage. Your use table can really hone in, so you could say distribution 200,000 square feet or less. You can say distribution, or you could, you can really do that within your use table, and that's something we might wanna do in Northeast Sutton, but I don't know that it's a smart thing to do that without any.
With facts.
Yeah, we need data.
And so they run the models. It's not something we run here, that's something we give them the information, they come up with the answer.
Yeah, and the guy that runs it, he works for Central Mass Regional Planning, and he also works in his real job for an actual traffic engineering firm and business. And I think I told you you saw his methodology in that very long email, and had a great meeting with him, really long sit down, and wow, really detailed. And all of this is also going to Mass DOT at the same time, because obviously, especially in Northeast Sutton, the $6 million upgrade they did at 146 and Boston Road they don't want anything messing that up. So, and if there's gonna be pressure on that, they wanna see it coming, and try to be part of a solution.
What's the schedule for our, we have a town meeting on,
So we have May, I forget, 11, I think, or right in that area, is the spring town meeting. The warrant closes Friday, so I have to have drafts to the town clerk before then. So this meeting is, what I walk out of here tonight with is directive from you to make sure the drafts go to the town clerk for these articles. Because that Article G we just talked about with the lawsuit stuff came from a different office, I'll run the map, see if it's alarming. If it's not too alarming, you'll still see that again, but that will move forward separately. But I need to walk out of here with what you want for draft articles. We can hone them, obviously, a little bit more before the warrant is finalized, and of course, when they go to the town clerk, they'll be going to town council at the same time, just to make sure there's no weird things in there. But, it's tough, because I wanna make sure as we have these two areas that are really our last two big tax-based job creation areas that are really in play, that we won't wanna delay what's happening on them, but we also don't wanna do something that ends up shooting us in the foot and just, messing up something potentially good, or so, and make a regulation or change something without data behind it. So.
For myself, and other board members can weigh in, I recognize that we have such a need for a business base to make it affordable for everyone to stay in town, but I also don't wanna crush the town with
Absolutely.
that. And that's a tough one. And when I'm in Northeast, at the aggregate, that's so big. Myself, as I share with board members, being on that piece of property, that really is the last big chance. That's the big undeveloped piece, that you have to think a lot about, and having the rail spur there means stuff can come in there, but you have to think about the stuff that's gonna come out of there and how it's gonna get out of there, and it ain't going out on the railroad. I didn't think they were gonna fix 146 at Boston Road. I stand corrected, it works. I mean, even when it was fixed, I wouldn't go there, and people said, no, it really does work. It is working right now. But it's only working for right now.
Right, you don't wanna
And then
mess
we
it
have
up.
to make decisions about what could crush something in the aggregate, because they won't go out to Millbury. They can't go under the railroad tracks, they gotta go through Wilkinsonville. It's just, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
And aggregate, and the facts is that aggregate has told us they're closing it down, they're out, they're gonna sell it.
Yep. Yeah, you have so much interest, so much interest. So something's moving, and it's moving fast, but like you said, you don't wanna crush everything, cause it's not just bad for what's already there if you mess up the traffic, for the residents, for the commuters, for the retail project that we just got up and running. It's bad for those new businesses too. You have a manufacturing warehouse business and the trucks can't move.
They can't get out.
Gotta
They can't get out.
Yeah.
So we need to understand that, so, it's kinda stuck on a line, cause you wanna encourage, but you don't wanna ruin everything by just jumping and messing something up. And we do have the ability, though we don't like to use special town meetings, we do have the ability, and if we're talking economic development and jobs and thoughtful planning, having put the research behind it, I just find it hard to believe that the selectmen wouldn't be supportive of a special town meeting, with the research behind it, if we need one before fall town meeting. That warrant closes in August, the meeting's not until October, so, but we're right up against it now for spring town meeting, and it doesn't feel right to just kind of do a kind of headlong rush without that traffic data in.
I think we need data. Other than that, we're just shooting in the dark. don't really wanna be making any decision without having some basis.
Got it? I'm just looking down the line.
No, I agree with that, and so, we had also talked about the, planned business development bylaw, and that's not really all that encouraging or workable.
Right.
Is that another place to potentially make changes that make sense too, right?
Yeah, and I think at the last meeting, the board members said, probably not ready to make changes on that now, but we need to do that.
So
And
maybe-
make it-
Maybe that's a fall target.
Yeah.
And make it more encouraging and usable, absolutely. Cause it's not, you read it now and it's like, what's the benefit of using this?
So for Friday, for that target that you have to have a warrant, we could certainly go forward with the things that have been recommended that we have in front of us. And we can pull the article before it goes on the warrant, right? We can always do that.
Oh, yeah, you
Yeah,
can
well,
pull.
pull it at the meeting.
And we can edit it before it goes to print. We
Right.
can modify it on town floor too.
Alright, so what do you wanna go with? So you wanna go with Article B? You wanna go with Article F? Article G, I will be revising and running the map on, and then you just gotta decide if you want to do C, D, and E, or if you want to wait on C, D, and E. I mean, the bulk of what's on C is just dumping things out of the OLI that aren't highest and best use. That's really the bulk of this article.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't see a huge harm there, if you wanna run down so you can make sure I get it right. Cause that just, you know, your choice is to just not touch any of it, and then if you're gonna make adjustments, do it all at once, but this definitely,
Some are gonna
as
get
these
dumped right now.
developers are queuing, will let them know what you are and are not looking for. What do you think?
We were clear that some of the stuff's gonna go,
Yeah,
right?
Yep.
pretty.
If you wanna look at it, we can look at it real quick, and then I can point out the ones I wasn't sure about.
Yeah.
So under, A is not here, the first section and the last section aren't here because you didn't do any changes to those. So it starts on B. So B, we had struck item 2, item 3, item 4, and I couldn't remember, Scott, that comes to you, that question, what the heck we did with 6. Right now, it's a special permit by the planning board, we just leaving it that way? Or,
Mr. Chairman,
Sure, yeah, thank you,
thank you.
for the record.
Sorry, Mark Donahue, I'm an attorney in Worcester. Some of us are here out of interest as to what the board's plan to do.
Mhm.
It would be helpful if you're talking about striking uses, if you could identify what those uses are, and so we can try to follow along and perhaps weigh in.
Mhm.
actually, and let me pull up the chart so you can see it, even easier. Alright, so, on this one, we were going to OLI and use table.
We're gonna be,
Okay, so in that first section, we were striking country, hunting, fishing, tennis or health club, golf course, day camp, or other counts, outdoor athletic fields, structures used for in relation to these of 10,000 square foot. We're striking cemetery, we were striking town equipment garage. And then I just couldn't remember if we were striking power plant and refuse facility or just leaving it.
Thought we said strike it. That's what I thought we landed on.
Yeah,
Strike it?
That's
Drop it.
fine.
yeah, get rid of it.
Alright, strike it, alright,
Yeah.
I couldn't remember. Alright, so there's those. Under agricultural and local land uses, the first one is protected by Mass General Law, anything on under 5 acres we were striking for agriculture. Under office uses, I had a question on this one. We were striking the freestanding automatic teller machine, cause that's not exactly highest and best use, nor is it usually freestanding anymore, all by itself. Business and professional offices, I could not remember, we did have a discussion on, can we think of a business and professional office that we would really need a special permit for? Cause permitted is still site plan review, so you're still doing the traffic study. If the traffic study shows an F, you can still deny it that's a safety issue. So I didn't know if we intended that to stay in special permit with the planning board, cause it's still one hearing, or if we were gonna just push it to P permitted. Again, it's about encouraging what you want. If that's not the top of what you wanna encourage in the district, then just leave it the way it is.
I think that's high on what we'd want to encourage, along with research and development, which is on here. So if encouraging means permitting, then I think that's a more encouraging way to go.
Yeah, so it's P, S with an asterisk, S line.
Right.
In order of encouragement. But when you go to P, unless there's kind of a life safety issue, which is a traffic study showing an F or something, you can't say no. Of course, with the special permit, you still have to have a firm foundation for a denial as well, you just have more flexibility. So what's the majority on that one? S with an asterisk like it is now, or change it to a P?
And we're talking about,
Business and professional offices, including banks and monetary institutions.
I think it should be a P.
I was thinking of the special permit because that's all new stuff. I wanna know more new stuff about the new stuff. Something,
Well, they still have
Do
to
we
go
have-
for
we have to
site plan
find-
review, so they still have to explain.
we have
what
to
they're
stick it
doing.
someplace.
Well, this one's just the business and professional office.
I mean, if you look at
This isn't
it,
one of the new ones,
it's-
this is existing. This is the number one use, that one already exists. So this is just a office building or a,
We don't have too many of them,
It's
actually.
No, we
permitted in
don't.
3 other districts.
and,
So
and we
let's
may
see,
not.
Nice to get some.
Let's make them permitted so we can have some.
Okay,
And we
yeah.
may not,
Well,
so,
I'm for a P.
you're for a P, you're for a P, you're for a P.
I'll be swayed.
Yeah, I'll go with P
Okay,
too.
so we're changing that S to a P, fine. Okay, so now moving on to retail, trade, and service uses.
Scott, did you still wanna look at research and development for going to P, or?
Oh, did you want that P, number 5 under D? Research and development?
Well, I would, but that may,
Okay.
that's just my opinion.
I'd be for that.
P,
Seems
P,
like a good use for,
P,
B, yeah.
P,
P.
P, say?
Might
So
be
number
better use than
D5
warehouses.
goes to P,
Right?
D5, permitted.
Now, in this thing that you handed out, they actually have a definition, research offices or establishments devoted to research and development activities.
Where are you? Oh, that one is, who's,
Stoughton.
oh, you like Stoughton's language, do you?
I do. I don't like the one above it, but I like number 14.
So did you want me to change the language too,
where are we at, Stoughton?
to Stoughton's language?
Anything that's a little more clarifying. I'm gonna see it.
So Stoughton's language says research offices or establishments devoted to research and development activities.
Isn't that
Yeah.
research?
Yeah? You like that wording better?
Yeah,
Okay.
Guess it spells it out more.
We'll get some people.
yeah.
All right, so,
More
Right now.
encouraging than just
Yeah.
saying.
all right, so we'll make it permitted and we'll adopt Stoughton, or we'll suggest Stoughton's language.
Copy.
All right, retail, trade, and services. Restaurants, I wasn't sure if you wanted to leave that as a special permit or make that permitted. I think the flavor of the office light industrial districts seem to be more office-y, light industry manufacturing, but
Personal service establishment, good. Don't
where the
worry.
restaurants seem to be, though they're not growing until we get some more businesses, or.
What I noticed in some other towns is in a lot of these industrial areas, and this is just me personally, because I'm looking at Grafton's use table, brewery and microbrewery and brew pub. You find them a lot in industrial areas. You look in Worcester
Oh, yeah,
over on
the
Millbrook
original-
Street where you have Greater Good. You look over a lot of those places you go, they're in those industrial buildings because they can fit their big.
Tanks. Tanks.
I don't know what people think on that one, but breweries are always a fun place to go.
place that would work is Manchog.
It would.
Yeah, I'd work in Manchog.
Absolutely.
It's Village District.
Oh, yeah.
So, okay, so 2 questions. Do you want to leave restaurant as a special permit from the planning board, or do you want it permitted? And do you want to insert a brew pub?
I would like to insert a definition to try and promote
that-
something like
Would
that.
that be the whole category, so like brew
Something,
pub,
cause I
distillery,
see
winery?
under Grafton, they have something different for brewery, microbrewery, nano brewery, and brew pub. They have 4 different definitions.
I don't know that we need to go that.
No, I don't think we need to go that crazy, but
But do you wanna include the
Personally.
winery and the distillery too?
yeah. I mean, personally, I would, but
In,
I agree.
in just the OLI or in the village as well?
I would
Across the board.
across the board, village, business,
Yeah.
maybe business. I mean, what's Market 32's area where they are? 'Cause they have that
Business.
whole phase 3 they're gonna be looking at.
Business,
That would be a perfect spot for a brew pub of some kind.
so everywhere but residential.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you keep yours in your refrigerator, that's fine.
So I got 1, 2, 3, how about you 2?
Yep.
You good with adding those pieces? Okay, fine, so we're making, and what do we do with restaurants, permitted?
Permit them.
Yeah.
Alright, so restaurants permitted,
Encourage 'em.
add brew pubs, distillery, winery to OLI, and, well, all non-residential districts. Okay, then we were striking personal service establishments, which is hairdressers, nail salons, blah, blah, blah. Again, we were just thinking highest and best use.
And those are permitted elsewhere.
Those are
in-
permitted in village and in the business
Yeah.
district where you have.
So there's other places for those to
Quite a
go.
few.
Yeah, they're there.
Okay. All right, you were striking convalescent and nursing home. You were striking repair services for appliance, furniture. Sorry, I'm scrolling. Repair services for appliance, furniture, and other goods except for vehicular and automotive repairs. You were making motion picture establishments special permit. Well, that was the motion picture amusement facility sports complex. And I can't remember why you wanted that special permit. Was that just because of potential impact, or? I can't remember. I just had that in my
Let's
notes,
scratch it.
so you can tell
I
me
would
if
say
I'm
leave it as
crazy.
permitted, personally.
You look at these places like, what is it,
Have, and you're talking
Apex?
about, what's the
Apex
one in
over
Apex?
in
Yeah.
Marlboro, where they have the
I
go-karts.
mean, they might be, you know, here today and gone tomorrow, but, you know, that
Highest
seems
best
to be
use.
something that's going on.
It's something that's going on for sure. You have one over in Foxborough, the big go-kart arcade location over there. You have Apex, you have.
So just give me a majority, permitted or special permit from the planning board. Permit,
Special.
permit, special permit,
Special.
special permit,
Special.
special,
Special.
overruled.
Overruled.
So that's a special permit. Okey dokey. I couldn't remember what you said for for-profit educational. I think this is one I was supposed to look into that I didn't. The only big worry there was, and maybe Mark, cause he's a spiffy zoning attorney, can weigh in, for-profit educational establishment. How does that work with the Dover Amendment, not paying taxes? I mean, the Dover Amendment, if it's educational, it gets exceptions anyways, right? Even if it's for-profit?
No.
No, it does not. And so would it, how about from a tax perspective, do you know? That was my big one. We don't wanna encourage education if it's not paying taxes,
Right.
right?
Tax-paying for-profit education. How's that?
So I will check with
Check that.
DOR or whoever on that. And when we're talking for-profit education, we're talking a for-profit college, we're talking, what's that?
Doing the trades.
The trade, like New England
school.
Tech or whatever. Okay. All right, so you want me to check on that, and if they're not paying taxes, we just scrap them? Otherwise, if they are paying taxes, what do you want me to do with them?
Leave
'Cause
it a
they could
special
be-
permit.
Then leave it the way it is,
Yes.
cause it is a good job generator. refrigerator potentially, depending on what it is. Okay, so there's that one. Now we move on. Okay, we were striking commercial kennels. P.S. I got a call this week on a lady that wants to do a commercial kennel. Where the Gilmore's house was, to the right of Chris Windle's. There's a huge barn they put up in the back, which is actually not a bad location for commercial, but I told her if she wanted to do that, she better move fast. So.
Very fast.
So we're, commercial kennels, we were striking, self-storage facility, we're just killing altogether, not highest and best use. All right, now, I added, as you instructed me, rental of goods, not including vehicles or construction equipment. And I added service companies with my extremely lame attempt at a definition that definitely needs to be improved. And, so we were allowing rental of goods under retail stores, so this just makes it clear that we're okay with rental of goods. It's very broad the way it's written. So.
Thank God.
So, like rock crushers, if they wanted to do only rental, they wouldn't be allowed under this category, I would say. So you'd have to do a different rental category. They do, I think they actually do rental, but it's like a wicked accessory use to them. So this is just rental of, you know, the party goods, the tents, the.
Looking in NAICS code description, truck, industrial, renting or leasing as a definition.
I just
That
think
have covered the vacuum truck if that was in there.
we were actually, remember, trying to get the vacuum truck into either a service company or an other contractor, which is why some of the NAICS codes I pulled, I was trying to find that, or trying to clarify that. That's the only bad thing about the NAICS is when you think you're drilling down to one use, you then see how many other uses are out there that you just never even knew about or never thought, it makes your head hurt. So, then you just try to pull it back into a 5-word category and it's very difficult to say the least. So, I just, you know, I don't think, 19's certainly not critical. Chris Windle, obviously, we did tell him, we'd try to make sure, because we weren't averse to his kind of use, that it worked in our OLI table update. It doesn't work in 19 the way it's written. I was trying to make it work in 20, but I don't think it really works with that definition. A service company is a business that generates income by providing services instead of selling physical products. That came from somebody else's bylaw. That's not what they do. They're really I pulled the category, there's one that is, remember how they said catch basin cleaning?
Yeah.
That was miscellaneous waste management services. When I plugged in catch basin cleaning, this is the category NAIC pulled up, and as you go down the list, there's a page missing, it was on there, catch basin cleaning was one of these. And this is what PSNEDT does too, grease trap cleaning, catch basin cleaning, beach maintenance cleaning, sewer cleaning and rotting, storm basin clean out, tank cleaning and disposal. This is what NEDT does besides hazmat cleanup. So I don't love the name of the category because it's kind of scary. But
Somebody's gotta do it.
right. And what those guys seemed to do more than anything was a different type of construction, which was the site prep contractors. That's where that came from. I plugged in vacuum excavation, and this is the category that came up, was site prep contractors. So I don't know what you wanna do. If you wanna just direct me to come up with a better category that includes the vac truck guy, I can try. Or you guys can try in your spare time this week too and see if you find anything. I didn't find anything helpful in any of these bylaws. What do you think?
Can't help you. I wish I could help you.
So leave 19, should we leave 19 the way it is? Cause that clearly defines the other things we allow into retail that aren't really the
Yeah.
tents and the stuff.
Yeah.
Service company,
But we got for right
I
now.
would say scrap it unless I can define it better.
Yeah, which one's that?
20. Sounds nice, but what the heck does it mean? That's the last thing we want to do, is put more uses in there that aren't well defined.
Yeah, the businesses are allowed, the office buildings are allowed, they provide services, they provide consultancy, they provide services.
Yeah.
So this could be deleted,
Yeah.
it would make a difference.
Yeah. So, again, I was trying to get at us helping those type of contractors that we saw with Chris Windle, but I wasn't getting there before I copied this to you.
I think he's already included.
Other contractor, then we just need to, as other contractor, we're coming to it, we would need to add that as a special permit use, cause it's not allowed in the OLI right now.
Okay.
I thought that was the best category for him, other contractor, cause he's really kind of a site contractor, he's not really a building contractor at all.
No.
But he's a site contractor, he's a utility contractor that, he's a.
And were we gonna split paving and other contractor?
Yes, yeah, that's
Oh.
what I, have in my notes, that we should.
We'll get to it when we get.
They could be other place.
So you want me to kill 20 unless I come up with a better definition for it? then?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
Yep.
yes.
We'll leave 19, kill 20 unless I come up with a better definition. So vehicular and automotive stays exactly as it is. Manufacturing and processing, we strike paving altogether in this note and go other contractors' yards, not including paving.
Yeah, cause paving's already
No, so-
striked as
So
not
paving-
allowed.
Paving, you just,
We're just leaving that as not allowed and adding other contractors.
actually, no, paving isn't addressed anywhere else, so because this is a permissive use table, if it's not specifically listed, it's not allowed. So what we have is number 3, landscape contractor, arborist, and building contractors.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want, we can define building contractors, so nobody can argue with us about what that means. And number 8 is the other contractors' yards,
Yeah.
not including paving,
Oh, so we're just taking paving out
period.
Right.
So now it's not listed, so it's prohibited.
and then changing it to
Other
special permit or?
Yeah, I listed other contractors' yards as special permit.
What is that?
So, and I was kind of on the fence with that, cause we were talking about highest and best use, and is other contractors' yards highest and best use or not, I don't know, but that's the only way you can do what you promised,
Mm-hmm.
Chris, you would do.
I would say special permit personally.
Leave it as a special permit then, just like it's shown there. So other contractors' yards, not including paving, special permit from the planning
Special
board.
permit.
Okay. And then accessory uses we struck because they are allowed below already in the section I, that's not shown here. And then, the only thing we struck on renewable energy was large ground mounted solar because, and I think you directed me to strike it from B2 as well as not a highest and best use. So like 146 south and the 2 that are permitted, one that's permitted on north that we didn't wanna use the business land for solar installations. In the past you did, you didn't at the last meeting, I thought you told me, or I can just leave it.
We can find a better use for the land than another.
It's up to you, I mean, a lot of what's left in the business is slopey, so that's why they put it like on that slope on one, cause they couldn't, it was too expensive to dig out a building foundation there,
Right.
remember all the rocks, But in the past, you had said that when we were talking about the big solar and had that whole rigmarole going, that we should just strike it from,
It's gone by.
It's,
So-
yeah.
so,
It's less.
so I just need to know,
I guess we can't say in this kind of a situation, why wouldn't we want that on top of the building? You
oh
know,
no, but
don't
that's
use-
allowed as of right,
No, I'm saying instead of on the land.
right?
Don't take up 10 acres with solar panels, put them on the roof.
Yeah. You have
Only.
500,000 square feet of, and that was my only other question that I didn't even bring up to you. Because we're a green community, do we wanna think about putting in provisions that if you get to a certain size building, you have to use some, you have to incorporate some form of
or-
green energy. We're not doing that for Springtown meeting, but that is on my list of things to think about,
Yeah, let's leave that off.
so.
So the, number 2, manufacturing. So this article here, this, in here is a nice description. Manufacturing, assembly, and processing, including associated offices and distribution facilities. Is that what we mean by number 2?
That's what we mean by number 2. I hate that number 2 is worded the way it is. It
So
lumps
can
together
we use this
wholesale.
instead?
Read it again.
Manufacturing, comma, assembly and processing,
What town is this? Does it say?
Amherst.
Amherst.
So that's
Oh, of course
pretty,
it is. The zoning capital of the planet.
There you go. Manufacturing, assembly
Assembly
and
and
processing,
processing,
including
including
associated offices and distribution facilities.
Yeah. So that is what we allow for, that's Atlas Box, basically.
Exactly.
So that is a better description of what we allow right now under manufacturing. That doesn't deal with pure distribution, but again, we have a ruling right now on trucking service warehousing that we don't need to mess with right this second.
Yeah, okay.
So do we change that or something?
Do you wanna change manufacturing to cleaner and put wholesale trade and wholesale trade, I don't know why they're even separate. Wholesale trade, wholesale sales of construction materials, why those are listed separately, I don't know. You just want wholesale trade as a different item. So manufacturing, one item, wholesale trade, different item.
Yep.
And
Well,
what
that's
does that
fine.
mean?
Well, I don't really know.
Right.
But I don't think this would be a place you'd come, like warehousing. You would not come to the warehouse or to this place as a retail and purchase.
Right.
It's going, it's for distribution through a wholesale network.
Do you think that's why they're lumped together? I just have no clue why they're lumped together like that, it seems weird to me.
It was probably written in a package in, what was it, 1965?
Yes.
Here's your package, here's your package, here's your package, that's the way it was going on.
Is that like the place up on Providence Road? Are they wholesale sales of construction material?
The
All
lumber
that,
guy?
all the landscaping guy, and all those different kinds of rocks and mulch and all that stuff.
Oh.
Materials.
No, he's a
material.
land, I don't even know what he is.
Well, I don't know,
Yeah.
I'm just throwing it out there.
No, I'm using, I think
his is-
Atlas Box is a good example
Yeah,
of what fits this description. Raw materials come in, finished product comes out, it's
The
stored.
one you just read,
Yeah,
the one you just read is perfect.
that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
So you
Yeah,
got that,
when-
we're changing that? Or
Yeah,
adding?
if we change number 2 to that, I think it's nice and clear, I just need to know what you want me to do with the rest of that, cause I don't think we should leave wholesale trade, wholesale sale of construction material in that same line item. I think we should either give it to its own if we know what the heck it is, or just strike it, or put it in with something else.
Let's add a new line and leave it.
We have to have it allowed.
Yeah.
A future discussion.
So leave it.
Create a new
So
line and leave it.
manufacturing, we use Amherst's wording,
And that-
manufacturing, comma, assembly and processing, including associated offices and distribution facilities.
And actually, the one that's above that is good too.
Publishing,
Well, as it talks about computer hardware, scientific products, associated offices and distribution
data
facilities, so.
processing, light manufacturing, light assembly, including computer hardware and software and scientific products with associated offices and
So
distribution.
I'm over in South Street in Hopkinton, surrounded by EMC Dell, or Dell EMC. That's what's going on over there all the time.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Nice offices, they're doing stuff that's not polluting, but they're assembling all those things.
So you wouldn't think that would fit under manufacturing right now? Or they just chose?
Amherst planner had it in 2 slots.
Yeah, and they probably, if you run across
That'll
the
encourage it.
districts.
It's more clarifying to have 2 descriptions,
Oh,
right?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and look at all their zoning districts. How many?
We're not trying to save
12.
paper.
We wanna encourage it though.
All right,
Right.
so we define manufacturing per the Amherst bylaw, and we give wholesale trade. And I don't think we need to say wholesale sale of construction material, right, just wholesale trade. that's everything.
Yeah.
Okay. It's online.
So these are, you know, as we think about these big parcels, this is the kind of stuff that would be desirable, right? That's,
Okay. And you want me to scrap self-storage, let me just finish the last two.
Yeah.
And kill Article E, unless I find some miraculous use or something, which
E?
I will. E is the service company definition, that's really lousy, cause we were striking that use for now, right now.
For further discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware that you were thinking about opening up the entire table of uses for the OLI. And while we have the determination from the building inspector, it was an interpretation of the bylaw. In the fall, we had worked with, Ms. Hager, came up with a definition for a new use, a warehouse distribution center. If the table is open, I would suggest adding that to it and simply making it a specially permitted use in the OLI district.
And you do have that language, I'll show it to you if you would like.
and is that consistent with the large warehouses we were talking about last fall?
Okay, so this is
Correct.
the
Correct.
definition of warehouse distribution that I believe we were considering last time. Around, a building and related facilities utilized for the receipt, storage, sorting, packaging, warehousing, and or distribution of goods, products, or materials.
And I think a clarification in my mind to that is there's no retail sales on site.
There's no sales of really any kind going on.
Okay. It's wholesaling. Okay.
Well, a building and related facilities, yeah, there's no, doesn't address sales at all. So you could have sales going on just through a different use table, or use category, multiple permitted uses on one site, or in one structure. Cause this is just warehouse distribution.
Can you read it again? I can't read that. Can you read it again?
A building and related facilities utilized for the receipt, storage, sorting, packaging, warehousing, and or distribution of goods, products, or materials.
And that would go on our use table
We do
under,
which category?
Think of section F. what we talked
retail,
about
trade,
before.
and services.
Vehicular and automotive, yeah.
He said, oh, I'm in E.
Place of 5 or
Can't read.
Right there.
So you do number 7, you'd add it as 7.
Yeah, I see it on the,
And then
Which was the way it was proposed in the fall.
Why wouldn't that be retail, trade, and services? To me, it's on the line, I guess.
Well, I don't think a warehouse distribution center really has a retail component to
no.
it. I suppose it could in the admiration, but generally, a facility that's designed for receiving, storing, and distributing packages, as a general rule, I'd say, doesn't have a retail component.
that's more of a trucking and,
Right, and I think if you could roll back, Chad, I think what this showed is in the fall, it was proposed as a new use in that section.
and the,
So it's not a new concept, I think it's right,
MTMC.
there it is, it was the new 7 under F, which makes good sense and was limited to the OLI.
And my only concern with that is that right now, this also applies to Northeast Sutton.
But being a special permit, if the
Numbers
traffic
don't work.
studies don't work, we have the ability to say no. It's just making sure the town
Well, it's still
knows that.
specially permitted.
Yes,
Yeah, that's what he said.
and that's what I'm saying, with the special
Right.
permit, if the traffic
Right.
studies don't work, we
Sure.
can say no to it.
And it's equally true that more likely than not, a user in that property could rely upon the same interpretation of your trucking services and warehouse use, which we received in December, which says it's especially permitted use.
So you'd be.
So I think what we're doing is clarifying what everybody understands to be the rules.
Making it
which has
cleaner.
some confusion, correct.
Yeah.
And then what we may wanna do, if you wanna do this, what we may wanna do at a special or fall town meeting is break it into different size warehouse distribution
I was
and
gonna
do
say.
smaller ones in Northeast Sutton, bigger ones in South Sutton.
Right.
this first.
It's up to you. Mark's not wrong. If he's got a determination on trucking service and warehousing already, there's nothing stopping somebody in Northeast Sutton from getting the same interpretation.
So why don't we put a size limit in now that can be adjusted in
you.
the future?
It's up to you. It's interesting though, cause the one thing I have found dealing with all the development companies I've been dealing with for the last 6 months is size is often indicative of traffic flow, but not always. So like you might have 500,000 square feet of distribution and you're automatically thinking that that's less than 1 million square feet. It's not necessarily, because of the way the business is.
That's how big your product is, probably.
Well, and just really,
Could be some of that.
I mean, just looking at the NAICS, hopefully you understand that there's a million different kinds of warehouse and
Oh, yeah.
distribution facilities.
They're all over the place.
So, I mean, you have a business like Atlas Box where a lot of their warehousing is stuff that they're storing for clients or whatever that rarely moves out of that facility. So, for instance, that facility, you know, 500,000 square feet, half of it could just be sitting there and really not producing many trips, whereas 500,000 square feet for Home Depot distribution is,
Yep.
every square foot is moving vehicles all day, every day. So size is, it's a safeguard, it's just not foolproof by any means.
So maybe the
If
better.
I might add, if, as I think members have indicated, one of the purposes of this is to encourage the appropriate development, particularly in the South Sutton area. To start now at 9:30 at night, to decide by Friday what's gonna go in and out of a bylaw is creating inevitably the rule of unintended consequences. It's a specially permitted use, and whether it's the right size or not for the area is incumbent upon the applicant to convince 4 out of 5 of you of those facts and be able to support it. I think if you start putting restrictions on without really thinking them through now, you could easily regret that.
That's why we weren't running at the MCMC right now, because we wanna understand.
So from what I understand, that they already can go in technically under the wording trucking services and warehousing
With the ruling, the written ruling.
with the written ruling. This is just cleaning it up and making it.
So you could leave it or not leave it. You could, you know, take it or leave it. He's got a ruling.
He's got a rolling.
He's got a ruling, so you can leave it alone altogether, or you can pop it in there.
That's an interpretation from the,
Yeah.
It's an
written.
interpretation of the current building inspector.
Yeah.
It is,
Just leave it.
you know, I'm not gonna suggest that the law is crystal clear as to how you can rely upon that.
Right.
So, you know, if you weren't opening the table of uses, we weren't gonna ask for it. But as we sat here and saw that you were opening up more than just a little bit of a oyster bit, you were opening up the whole kimono, it's a good time to put it in for the use that this board had supported in the fall for the area. So, that's why we're here.
Okay.
We'd prefer to have it that way.
What say you, majority? Are you good with defining it or writing it more clearly? But leaving it as 7 and just leaving the other one
As a
alone
special
until
permit.
we
Yeah.
fix it,
I feel comfortable with that.
okay?
I would go the same way, yeah,
Okay?
as we had
Okay?
it.
are we doing the, what's this thing, MTMC?
We, I had suggested we leave that alone for right now.
We'll leave that alone for now.
Cause you know that's gonna draw fire, and there's no need to draw fire right this minute as we're trying to figure it all out, get our traffic counts and decide how we
Okay.
wanna address the 2 different areas of town.
But we always can pull that, we can go forward and pull it if we want. If the traffic studies come in and say, yeah, that can support,
If the majority of these members, and the majority of you want me to put MC on, I'll do that, and we'll pull it if we need to.
or we can look at it in the fall.
I'd say
Have
look
it
at
Or
it.
a
all
special,
meeting.
you know, if the pressure
Or a
comes,
special.
you could ask for a special.
Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough.
We got enough to go on now.
I'm convinced.
Town meeting in the spring where
Yeah.
planning generally isn't. So
Alright, I think I have marching orders. If you guys peruse the NAICS or other use tables and find something brilliant that you think will markedly improve something, let me know, otherwise I'll be drafting away. Okay.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn?
Oh,
No?
wait a minute, there were just 2 small things that we hopped over at the beginning. Under correspondence. Wally gave us an awesome article. I really want you to pay attention to it. It came out of the Wall Street Journal, right? Or Worcester, or
This is out of the Boston Globe, the
Boston
Sherburne.
Globe.
Yeah, Sherburne.
Basically, and I'm sure Mark's familiar,
Yeah.
it was a ruling, the ZBA, granted a variance or a special permit, to allow a house on a 3-acre parcel, and the abutters appealed that, saying you were all kinds of fun things. I mean, it was just amazing, the phrases that were used, and, it went through appeals and blah, 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 all the way to Supreme Judicial, and they upheld the zoning board's variance. So take a good look at that, cause that is kind of the heart of what's going on with housing now, and why, we're now at $400,000 for median home price in Massachusetts, and situation's not getting worse. I mean, not getting better. That's in Shelburne, I believe, was that case. Really interesting. Thank you, Wally, for forwarding that. That was great. And then I just need a vote to endorse the covenant revision for Armsby Road. I did verify that we do need to revise the covenant on Armsby Road because we have that new plan with the elbow added. So just a motion to revise the Armsby Road.
And that's everyone? Just me?
No, you're just signing that plan, which you already voted to sign.
Mhm.
That's the Armsby Road plan right there.
Yes.
Okay.
And then everybody is signing the covenant revision, which is also in front of you, but I need a motion first.
So moved.
Second?
Seconded.
Paul?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained.
All right.
Motion to adjourn, please, someone.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
8:30.
Yeah,
9:30.
8:30.
No.
Thanks, y'all.